Well, once upon a time, a long time ago, and maybe not so long ago, because every story, like this story too, is happening right now, right here, inside of each one of us. And remember, you just might be every character in the story that you hear, including the ones that you're like, love that character, ooh, I really don't like that one. So we get to meet all of them, and it's all parts of the self. So there's this very famous couple, you may have heard of them. Their names are Shiva and Shakti. Anyone heard of them? Okay. So they have this, this is epic love, like beloveds of eons and holding it all. And really, in truth, Shiva is the principle of consciousness, and Shakti is the principle of dynamic energy. And so it's always consciousness and energy, consciousness and energy, consciousness and energy, like this. The ground of awareness and the dynamic power and creative energy that springs out of that ground of awareness as the divine beloveds. Well, Shiva has this way of meditating up on Kailash for thousands and thousands of years. It's just, falls into that deep samadhi and is deep and wide in this inner space. But Shakti, who likes to create and play and be in the physical manifest, is like, I wonder when he's coming back, And so one day she decides, well, he might be there for a little while longer. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little sun for myself. That's what I'm going to do. So she takes a bath, and she goes into the bath, and she takes all these oils in the bath, and her laughter, and some say she has some clay there too. And she starts mixing the unguents and the oils with her laughter and with her heart desire and with a little clay and some of the water. And then the ocean rises up and brings this big abalone seashell, and it's glimmering and glowing. And she places all of this in the seashell, and then this beautiful little being starts to dance, and you know who it is? It's this little baby boy, and she looks and she goes, for sure that is the son of Shiva, because he's already born dancing. And Shiva loves to dance, Nataraja in particular. So now she says to her little baby boy, she says, you know what? Shiva, I heard now inside myself that Shiva's coming home soon. So I'm going to get ready, and what I'd like for you to do is guard my threshold. Guard the doorway so that no one can come, and then when the right time is here, it will be Lord Shiva. But just guard the doorway. Well, now the little boy doesn't exactly know who Shiva is yet, right? Because he's never seen him. So Shiva comes home a little early, and Shakti's getting ready, and this little boy's holding down this threshold, holding down the door, and is like resolute and just fully here. No one's coming through. And Lord Shiva comes, and he's like, I want to go in through this threshold to my beloved Shakti. And he's like, no way, you're not coming through. This goes on for some time. Shiva's like, don't you know who I am? And he's like, don't you know who I am? I'm like guardian of this threshold, and I'm taking this seriously. Shiva, of course being Shiva, just takes out a big trident or a sword and chops off his head. Well, when this happens, Shakti comes raging out of the temple grounds, and she says, what did you do? That's our son. He's like, I didn't know, I never met him before. And she's like, you better go and get a new head on him as fast as possible. And you've got like 22 more minutes, something like that. So he goes, okay. So Shiva gathers all his ganas, all his buddies, all his friends, and he goes, let's go in the direction of the north. And he goes, because the north, Uttara, like Uttara Bodhi, the direction of the north holds the wisdom. So they all go, and they're going to the north and to the direction of the wisdom. And there's this great demon elephant that has been waiting there for thousands of years, who's been in the deepest devotion to who? But Lord Shiva himself. And when this demon elephant sees Lord Shiva coming, goes, oh my gosh, it's finally my chance. Like all these thousands of years, now I finally get to meet Lord Shiva. And so Shiva and all the companions come up, and the demon is just so happy, and he says, I've been doing all these practices for so long. Can I please have a boon from Lord Shiva? And Lord Shiva says, yes, of course. What would you like? He's like, I just want to be united with you, just one with you. And so I would just like for you to just climb into my mouth and just come live inside my belly. So Shiva's like, okay, we'll do it. So Shiva climbs in, and now he's swallowed whole, and everyone's like, what is going on? No, we need you back. And And so then his very good friend, Vishnu, who you're going to hear a lot about along the way, Vishnu says, okay, I know what to do. Let's call the Gandharvas, the celestial musicians, and let's bring them down to the earth like last night, you know, like the divine musicians, all chanting and singing up here, and we're all transported. And they bring this feast with them and all this music and song. And as they're doing that, Gajasura, the elephant demon who swallowed Shiva, lifts up and he goes, oh, this is the most beautiful music I ever heard. Oh my gosh, I want to give you a gift. Thank you so much for bringing this feast and this music to me. And they say, yes, please give us a gift. And then he's like, what gift do you want? They say, we want Lord Shiva. And so he throws him up out of his mouth, as any good elephant demon might do. And there is Lord Shiva, and he's liberated yet again, but he always was anyway. And so then the great demon recognizes in this moment his real true purpose, which is to transform from the demon into the greatest ally, to transform from the poison into the nectar, from the ignorance into the wisdom. And in this moment, the elephant demon says, take my head and put it on your little boy. First code of the story is about the power of transformation, the very limitations, the very places of our attachments when we learn to do what? Let go of control and open our mind, all these things, then what happens is the transformation begins. The very places of the tightest winding up of the mind are actually the places that we can unwind and have the greatest liberation. That which seems like it is, we're going to hear a story in a moment, that which seems like it's a curse can actually open itself to be the verse. Okay? That which is the obstacle becomes a whole doorway of evolutionary expansion if we turn to it. Now let's carry on, because you may have noticed in the singing last night and in the stories that this elephant is often known as Eka Danta, the one tooth, right? Eka, one, Danta means tooth, and it stands for tusk as well. So Eka Danta, why this one tusk? Well, like any good story, there's multiple versions. I'll tell you at least 3. Okay, so let's do this. So here's the first one. Go back to Shiva and this guardian force of Ganesha. Ganesha is the guardian at the threshold of any new beginning, the threshold of our mind, the threshold of any transformation, the threshold of anything that we consciously choose that we are really going to put our focus, our sankalpa to it, and we're going to change it for the benefit of all. Ganesha's at that threshold. Okay? So, there is this great demon upon the earth. And everyone says, no one can defeat this demon. So Vishnu says, well, I have lots of avatar forms, these forms, the descent of consciousness onto the earth for Dharma. And what I'll do is I'll take this form known as Rama, and it's one of the 10 avatar forms of Vishnu, and he carries a great big axe. And he comes to the earth plane and is completely aligned with Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva gives Parashurama all of these boons that he can be indefeatable and he can restore Dharma on this earth. And so Parashurama goes to Mount Kailash where Shiva is doing what? Meditating. And he says, I have to go, really give my gratitude and my praise. Who's standing at the guardian, as the guardian at the gateway? Who's the gatekeeper? Ganesha, right? Now, at this point, Ganesha has 2 tusks. And he's presiding the protection at the guardian at the gateway. And Parashurama says, I have to get in and I have to go say thank you to Shiva. I have to do it right now. And he says, no way, he's meditating, can't happen. He said, no, I have to go right now. And for all of the strengths and empowerments of Parashurama that he has, patience is not one of them. So he's like, okay, but right now I have to do it. And so Ganesha says, no, you cannot. And he takes his great axe and he throws it at Ganesha and it hits one of the tusks. But Ganesha lets him do it because he knows that axe was actually formed by Lord Shiva himself. So out of respect for his own father, he says, okay, you can have the tusk. But it shows like his willingness to see beyond the limiting, what the limited mind can see. Ganesha represents seeing beyond the limits. Okay, so that's the first story. Now the second story comes to the Mahabharata. Different versions, but I'll tell you this one. The Mahabharata is 100,000 verses of the greatest epic of all times, and inside the Mahabharata is the Bhagavad Gita, the 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita inside these 100,000 verses plus. And so the great poet saint who is receiving the download, it's like being in Sedona and all the channels open and the vortex is aligned and you're just getting divine downloads like this, and it starts streaming through really fast. So this is Vyasas, and he goes, oh my gosh, 100,000 verses are coming, and they're coming right now. I need a scribe. I need someone who can write down these 100,000 verses as quick as they're coming through me. And he says, I know who. Let's go to the Lord of wisdom, the Lord who is the patron saint of all poets and writers and scribes, and also of thieves and a few other people too. And so he goes, I'll go to Ganesha, and I'll ask him to be my scribe. He goes to Ganesha, and he says, okay, I want you to be my scribe. And Ganesha says, that sounds boring. And he goes, but it's 100,000 verses of the Mahabharata, the greatest epic of all times. And Ganesha goes, I know, but it still sounds boring, so I'll make you a deal. If you can make it really interesting, like with riddles and paradoxes, and if you've ever tried to read the Mahabharata, you will know that you're like reading like this, trying to like follow the lineages and the riddles and the this and the that. And he goes, you have to make it so interesting that I'll be inspired to keep writing. And then Vyasas has to think out of the box too, because he's like, I'm gonna need a little space for thinking. He's like, okay, he's like, but you cannot stop at all, only if you have to reflect on one of the meanings, and then you can stop. And so then they create this pathway of a sacred pause, just like the solstice is the sun, sol sistere. When the sun appears to stand still, a sacred pause. So through the layers of meaning, there are these little sacred pauses where Vyasas restores, where Ganesha reflects, and then they continue to write. Now, as this happens, Ganesha is moving through it so intensely that the quill that he's writing with actually breaks. And so, in his deep devotion and passion and great bhakta heart and perseverance to keep going, he breaks off one of his tusks, and he dips it into a well of ink, and he keeps writing the Mahabharata. That's your second story of Eka Danta. Now, the third is my favorite, so I saved it for last. There's a big feast. So Ganesha's been at a big feast with so much beautiful food, and he's riding on what? His little mouse. What's the little mouse called? Musica. And then what are all of the vehicles called of all of the deities? They're called vahanas. Vahanas, and what's the root of vahana? It means to transport. So you can see how all this links up. So the vahanas, this little mouse, the little musica, that this great big elephant is riding on. And he's had such an awesome feast. His pot belly, Lambodra, holding the whole universe, is very full with this great tasting feast. And he has a little plate of ladus and sweets and everything that he loves. And they're going home underneath the full moon. This snake comes across the path, and the little mouse sees it, and the mouse gets scared and lifts up like this, throws Ganesha off, his belly splits open, all the food comes out, and worst of all, he drops the ladus, the sweets. Now, forget about it. Ganesha's like so upset he lost the ladus. The moon thinks this is very funny. So the moon, at this point, that's always full, just starts laughing and laughing. Chandra is laughing, and Ganesha gets mad. And he takes one of his tusks and he breaks it. And he swings it and throws it straight to the goal of shattering the moon into total darkness. Okay, so he got his point across, but now the world is feeling dismal. the lovers are complaining. They're like, we don't have the full moon anymore to be inspired. And the poets are like, we can't write without the full moon. And everyone's like starting to feel like the soma, the elixir of the moon, it's not there. And they go, what can we do? How can we get Ganesha to give us something good out of this? And Ganesha says, okay, I got it. From this point forward, there will always be the waxing and the waning of the moon. So that we have to know that which lifts us into the light, like right now to the peak of the solstice sun, that'll be half of the year. And then from summer solstice to winter solstice, we will be in the waning part of the year to the longest night of the year. And there will always be this spandana of the waxing and the waning, of the light and the dark, and etc., and this pulse of the opposites, like a yin and a yang. And so everyone seems pretty happy about that, and the story continues on, and we have all of the phases of the moon, which each one brings a blessing, and I can tell you about that one day too. So now we have Ganesha, and I'll finish with this. Two brothers. Who's his brother? Kartikeya Skandamata.